One morning, I stepped outside and froze. A fence had appeared overnight, cutting across my ranch like someone else owned it. Smug HOA faces, a shiny new gate, all their fake authority on display. They thought they could block me, intimidate me, and claim control. But they didn't know one thing: I own the easement. Every road, every path through that land legally belongs to me. So I didn't just knock down their bluff, I turned it into a business. I installed my own gate system, turned the road into a private toll, and now, every HOA member who dares pass through pays me. Their little power move backfired spectacularly. It started one crisp morning when I stepped out of my ranch house, coffee in hand, expecting the usual quiet serenity. But something was off. A fence now cut across my property, tall, imposing, and perfectly straight, as if overnight the HOA had decided to claim ownership. At the center of it stood a shiny new gate, all locks, bolts, and smug authority. The HOA president and her entourage were there, grinning, clearly proud of their handiwork. They probably thought this was clever, thought it would intimidate me, make me bow, and force me into submission. I walked closer, examining the metal and woodwork. It was neat, efficient, and yes, it blocked the road through my land, but it wasn't enough to frighten me. I had spent decades understanding the property, the easements, and the rights my grandfather had secured decades ago. Every inch of that road that ran through my ranch had legal backing. Every bolt of that fence could be contested. As the HOA president strutted forward, arms crossed, attempting to assert dominance, I smiled faintly. "You think this stops me?" I asked calmly. She blinked, caught off guard by my lack of panic. You can't just ignore the community rules," she said, voice sharp, trying to regain control. I leaned against my truck, surveying the blockade. "Oh, I'm not ignoring them. I'm just rewriting the terms." Inside, the gears started turning. What they thought was a show of power, their new gate, their fence, their ownership of the road was about to become an opportunity. I reached out to my attorney, reviewed the easement, and confirmed something delightful. I could legally control access, charge for passage, and enforce my rights. Meanwhile, the HOA president continued to bark orders to her minions, clearly unaware of the legal storm brewing just beneath their noses. Her smirk was fading as I calmly walked back to the porch, sipping my coffee, already planning how to turn this petty intimidation into something they would regret under every possible law and ledger. By sunset, the gate had become a symbol not of my limitation, but of their overreach. What began as an attempt to block me had planted the seeds for my own private toll road. The HOA thought they were winning. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, the HOA arrived early, confident that their fence and gate had won the psychological battle. They drove their SUV up the blocked road, expecting me to flinch or surrender. Instead, I was already at work, not tearing down the fence or arguing, but turning their intimidation into strategy. I called in a contractor I trusted, and we began installing a small but highly secure toll system. Automated gates, payment kiosks, and monitoring cameras, all designed to ensure that anyone passing through would have to pay for access. The HOA smug smiles quickly turned to confusion as I waved them past with a casual hand gesture. "Go ahead, but remember, my rules now apply." Their first reaction was outrage. Karen, the HOA president, stepped forward, furious. "This is absurd. That road is a community access route," she shouted, waving her clipboard like a weapon. I laughed lightly. "Funny thing about easements and property law," I said. "I own this road. You just tried to block me from it." Her face went pale. The minions behind her glanced nervously at one another. They had no idea that their little stunt had just handed me complete control over access. Every SUV, every truck, every neighbor who wanted to pass through now had to comply with my toll system. Every attempt to assert authority on their part would now be documented, logged, and, if necessary, billed. Within hours, the first tolls were collected. A small notification popped up on the system for each passing vehicle. Access fee, paid. Karen's jaw dropped when she realized the implications. Their entire community. Access now generated income for me. What had begun as a petty intimidation had transformed into a tangible, profitable, and legally protected setup. Neighbors started asking questions. Some were curious, others nervous. Could they really be stopped from driving their usual route without paying? The answer was yes, the easement, the toll. The rights were all on my side. The HOA had overplayed its hand, and now every action they took would funnel directly into my control. By late afternoon, tension had shifted entirely. Karen tried negotiating, demanding exemptions, pleading for community fairness. I smiled, calmly showing her the legal documents, the easement maps, and the toll system setup. Every argument she made crumbled under the weight of law and planning. And as the sun dipped behind the trees lining the ranch, one truth was undeniable. The gate she thought would keep me out had become my most powerful tool. Their arrogance had been turned into opportunity, intimidation had been converted into profit, and the HOA had no idea how quickly the balance of power had shifted. The first day of my private toll road ended with a quiet satisfaction. I watched as SUVs slowly drove through, each paying the fee, each acknowledging that I now controlled the road and, by extension, the narrative. The HOA thought they had won with a fence and a gate. They hadn't realized that I wasn't just defending my property. I was turning their attack into a masterclass of leverage, strategy, and profit. Little did they know this was only the beginning. By the following week, word of the toll road had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Neighbors, who had once viewed the fence as a bold move by the HOA, now whispered nervously as they approached the gate. Their smug arrogance had crumbled under the reality of my ownership and planning. Karen, the HOA president, tried to maintain control. She arrived early one morning, clipboard in hand, attempting to intimidate drivers with citations and community rule enforcement. But every time she approached, the toll system logged her presence. The automated cameras captured every word, every gesture. Every step she took was documented, a visual record of her failed attempts to exert authority. The irony was delicious. The same gate she had erected to block me had become her undoing. Each vehicle that passed, each dollar collected, served as a reminder of her miscalculation. Her attempt to assert dominance had transformed into a flow of legal, documented revenue, controlled entirely by me. Neighbors began taking sides. Some admired the ingenuity, others grumbled, realizing that the road they had taken for granted was now fully regulated. But no one dared challenge me. Every attempt at protest could be countered with the easement rights, toll documentation, and legal backing. Karen's face, once full of confidence, gradually shifted from anger to disbelief. Every time she tried to rally support, she faced quiet resistance or polite refusal from the residents. She realized she had overplayed her hand, and worse, she had underestimated me. By the end of the month, the HOA had officially abandoned any attempt to interfere. Their gate, once a symbol of intimidation, had become my triumphant tool of authority and profit. Every attempt to reclaim control was met with documentation, legal precedent, and the undeniable fact: the land and road were mine to manage as I saw fit. The toll road became more than just a statement, it became a lesson in foresight, patience, and leveraging one's rights. The fence that was meant to humiliate me now symbolized the exact opposite: the HOA overreach, their failure, and my quiet but undeniable victory. As I stood on my porch, watching the sunset over the ranch, I couldn't help but smile. The HOA arrogance, their sense of entitlement, had been transformed into my power, my leverage, and my profit. What they intended as a blockade had become an opportunity. What they intended as fear had become respect. And what they thought was authority had become a lesson in humility. In the end, one thing was crystal clear: never try to control someone who knows the law, knows their rights, and knows how to turn every attack into opportunity. The gate stood tall, the toll system humming quietly, and the HOA was left to realize that their arrogance had built the very structure that now ensured they paid me every single time. Victory, after all, had never tasted so sweet.